welcome back, man. This is the Shredding Hippie Surf Show. I'm Thumper, the Shredding Hippie, and I'm here to talk to you about surfboards, man. And on this show, we talk about surfboards and surfing and why single fins rule. And, who is this show for? This is for guys, maybe you're like me. Maybe you're an older guy. Maybe you've been surfing for a long time. I've been surfing for 40 years off and on. I've been through the whole shortboard revolution. I've seen all kinds of different fin configurations. I've seen the whole deal. And my deal is, man, I still want to shred. But I'm not 50 pounds and I'm not 14 years old. I need boards that can float me and that I can still shred on. So that's what I'm here to help you to find out. Find boards that you can really shred on. I'm going to talk to you as time goes on about how bitchin' single fins are and, anyway, all kinds of cool stuff about the history of surfing. But let's get to what we're going to talk about today. Today I'm going to review a surfboard, man, that I really dug, man, and that surfboard is the Dwart by Rusty. And, again, when it comes to surfboards, man, you got to get the right amount of volume. If you don't get the right amount of volume for who you are, you're not going to have fun. So the Dwart is a really chunky, packed full of volume surfboard, man. And I surfed this for, solely as my only surfboard for, a couple months at least. And during the winter, no less. Now, Rusty, they advertised this board as being a one-board quiver. And I'm going to tentatively agree with them on that, man, because, this board can handle a lot of ranges of waves, but you got to understand what its limitations are. So, here on the Shredding Hippie Surf Show, we have a rating system, a very complicated, precise rating system that starts with totally lame on the bad side and then totally bitchin' on the upside. So I'm going to give this surfboard a totally bitchin' with a caveat. And the caveat is, man, you got to know what the limitations of this board are. So let's take a look at the board. Here's some pictures of the ones that I was, the one that I was riding. It was a 6'6", and it was just about almost 47 liters. Now, had I known it was that many liters, I probably would have gone down an inch or two. But when I was looking at the board, when I was wanting to get it, they had it listed as 45.8 liters, which was perfect for me. But I found out later that that was, somebody had messed up, man. And they had put 45.8 when they should have put 46.8. So the thing was almost 47 liters. The cool part about that is that it paddled really well. It caught waves well and it floated me no problem. Downside, man, that big fat fish nose at 47 liters, I had a hard time duck diving. I mean, it was almost as hard as duck diving this board right here. In fact, it was pretty much the same. I could duck dive that board as easily as I could that. It's because the thing is so thick. I don't remember what the dimensions are, but I'm going to magically put the dimensions on the screen here for you now, man. Whoa. All right, so you can see that at the 6'6", this was a pretty thick board. So let's talk about what the board does right, man. The board, for me, I loved surfing it as a quad fin. And the sweet spot for that board is about hip to shoulder high, and preferably at mid or high tide. If you surf, beach breaks, you know what I'm talking about. What this board loves is it loves long walls of waves that are a little, not too steep, a little bit flat. Waves you can take off and you can just crank and get some speed and go down the line. Board loves to do that. It's so fast. And so I always knew if I was taking off and there was, a section coming up that this board was going to get me through those sections. And the speed that it generated, it's also really fast. let's see, let's keep talking about the good things about it. So it's really fast. Under the right conditions, you can crank some gnarly turns on it. You can get it vertical. I got it vertical backside. You know, it was a lot of fun to do that. Front side, I got some really great cutbacks, and yeah, man, things just a lot of fun. So let's talk about how the board is, and this will explain why there's some downsides here and why, you know, the good sides are there. On the bottom of the board, it's basically flat. The bottom, it had a little bit of, just a tiny bit of concave and then double concave going out the tail, but it was pretty much just flat all the way through. And the rails were thick. They weren't, you know, they were soft rails. So this is a great board for somebody, not only, you know, if you're an intermediate or advanced, but it's also a good board for somebody if they're wanting to make a transition to a shortboard, because it's so thick and the rails are so soft that, you know, it's very forgiving, and it's got, you know, nice sweet spots all over the place. That was a good thing about it. All right, so now the bad. Again, I still give this board a totally bitchin' as long as you understand what it's meant to do. But how does it not work? So I surf a lot of beach breaks, and so what will happen is sometimes I can take off when the wave is still kind of flat, and then, you know, I can pick up speed, and then it'll hit a sandbar. And that's the cool part, because you're going down this, you know, this sectiony wall, man, and whoa, you're going to hit a sandbar, and you can see it coming, and you're like, maybe I'm going to grab a little barrel or something, man. And so what this board would do, especially since the one I was riding on was so thick and so flat, is that it would pick up tons of speed, and then when it would start to pitch, what would happen is that board would stick to the side of the wave like that. And what I wanted it to do was get into the pocket like this, but because it's so flat and so thick and the rails are so, you know, so fat, that it would stick on the side of the wave, and then it would dump me over the side. It would also, I would have the same kind of issues when I would want to go and carve. If I wanted to carve up under the lip, you know, same thing. It would stick, and then the front would catch. It's got that really big fishy nose, and this is a drawback of big fishy noses. They're great for paddling. You know, sometimes even if they're too big, you actually push water away from you. So, you know, there's actually, you can, under certain conditions, it can actually slow you down when you're trying to catch a wave. But the other downside is that if you want to carve up under the lip, that front of the board is going to catch. It's going to want to throw you over the side. Happened numerous times for me, because shredding hippie, man, he likes to do old school carving, and that board, you want to make that, you want to throw that board around, make sure that the volume is not too big, you know, if you want to throw it around, and also, you know, you got to sink the tail. So for me, if I wanted to make that board work, what I'd have to do is come up vertical and sink the tail off the top. If I wanted to carve up underneath the lip, it would throw me off. Backside, I had a great time. Now, let me get to the advertisement. It's a one-board quiver, man. Now, I surfed this as a one-board quiver in wintertime, and they advertise that it'll surf anything from 1 to 10 feet. My experience was that it could handle as big as I was willing to paddle into, and I went into some pretty big overhead, pretty gnarly waves, but I surfed it as a try. So here's what happens. It can handle those waves. You'll get into them and it'll hold. It won't spin out. But the problem is, because it's so flat and so wide and so thick, that once again it wants to stick to the wave. So the bigger the waves got, the faster the waves got, the board started going, and it started getting more stiff. And it would want to stick to the side of the wave and all that. So, you know, I took off on some big waves, and I went through some, you know, pretty fast, but there wasn't a whole lot of turning going on, because the board was just like, I'm just going to get through this. We'll be okay. Don't worry about it, man. I'm going to get you through this. So again, it's probably a good board for the more beginner types, because as the waves get bigger, it'll stay solid, especially as a tri-fin. But so that's the downside, man. You know, there's always a downside to something. If you want a one-board quiver, that means that on the extremes, it's not going to be so great, but there's going to be a sweet spot where it's just going to shine. And this board is perfect. I mean, the perfect day for me was, you know, mid to high tide, but shoulder high and long walls, and it was just a blast. I had so much fun on that board. Anyway, so that's the Rusty Dwart, man. And I give this this board a totally bitchin' with a caveat. So hey, subscribe if you like what you're hearing here, and like, two different things. Subscribe and like, two different things. And we're going to be talking about single fins. We're going to do some more reviews, man. And I'm going to give you some history. At some point we're going to be talking about the history of coop leashes and when fins were called skags. And that's not a disease, by the way. That's like the thing on the bottom of the board. Anyway, so that's it for now, man. Later on, try till you're dead. You can see it coming, you're like, maybe I'm going to grab a little barrel or something, man.